Austin-based psychologist Dr. Andrea Zeddies is here to talk to us about Disability Pride Month. She's been in private practice for over 20 years working with kids and adults, and she's the author of a children's book about a boy with polio, her dad, Charlie's Friendship Garden. It's a very cool story, and I'm so glad we're taking a moment to discuss this important topic. So Dr. Andrea, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, what's the significance of Disability Pride Month?
So every July we celebrate the signing of the American with Disabilities Act, which was July 26, 1990. And we also want to honor and recognize individuals with disabilities or different abilities. And so what that act provided for was accommodations for transportation, any kind of public location, schools, employment, as well as for transportation and communication tools.
Mm-hmm. And I think in my mind, 1990 doesn't seem all that far ago.
No.
We should have done something sooner.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to believe because I was just thinking about, this book is written about my father who had polio. And that was in the late 1920s, early 1930s. And so for somebody like my dad, there were no accommodations in schools for him or public places. So I just find that really interesting. You know, it's a relatively new law, actually.
Yeah, but how far we've come now that we have things in place that can help other people. And so I want to ask about what the ADA actually is. I think a lot of us see the signage or know the acronym, but don't have a whole lot of an idea of like what they actually provide for people who have different abilities or disabilities.
Right. So the ADA requires that buildings have, say, elevators or ramps for people who are in wheelchairs or have difficulty with physical disabilities. And then there are also like communication tools. So for, say, children in schools, there are communication devices that help them, certain types of iPads where they can point and it speaks for them. And so Titles 2 and 3 of the law are specifically about children's accommodations in schools, public and private. And so those require those communication tools, accommodations in the classroom to accommodate for the physical needs or cognitive needs. And so, that's what it's providing for. So.
Which is wonderful. What does that look like in practice when you're maybe interacting with kids or adults? Talk to me about how you see them.
Mm-hmm. So in practice, again, if we're going to focus on like children and schools, I've been working with kids on the autism spectrum for many years, and so what that looks like is they are required to be placed in what's called the least restrictive environment. And so that means we don't want kids with differences to be in a special education classroom all day. We want them to be in a mainstream classroom with their neurotypical kids, and so that they can learn from each other.
And that's been a relatively new development.
Somewhat. I mean, it was required in 1990 when the law was signed that there's a least restrictive environment. And then those kids also will get, like a teacher will pull them out of the classroom for individualized or small group instruction for specific subjects that they need additional assistance with, or they will have an aide in the classroom if they need like behavioral support.
Mm-hmm. What about for adults? I mean, it's hard to be out here in the working world and to have your needs accommodated. Is there anything that you see necessarily that you haven't mentioned yet that you want to touch on?
For adults?
Yeah.
Well, so interestingly in the schools, it is required also for parents and staff to have access to those same accommodations. If a parent or a staff member has a disability, then they, by law, the school needs to provide those accommodations for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And let's talk about learning disabilities or mental health concerns. Those aren't necessarily what I would think of as clear-cut ADA terms, but I'm guessing they still deserve accommodation.
Absolutely. So there are disabilities you can see and disabilities you can't see. So for autism, for example, or for a physical disability, that falls under what's called an individualized education plan, or IEP. And that's when the students, parents, and the teachers and administration get together and they come up with a plan of how they're going to provide these accommodations and modifications to the curriculum. For kids who have anxiety or depression, for example, those are the unseen things, or a learning disability. Those fall under a section of the law called 504. And so a 504 is a type of IEP, but it's where it's called other health impaired. And so those children are given accommodations such as additional time to take their tests, sometimes for homework and schoolwork, and then they are provided with like a small group or individual testing location. So that they will have fewer distractions. Kids with dysgraphia, for example, are allowed to use a keyboard in most situations for, say, taking notes during the class or for taking a test.
Okay. And then just in our last 15 seconds, anything else parents should know about the ADA?
Well, the main thing is that if you think that your child has a disability or they have already been diagnosed, then you need to contact the special education coordinator at the school and set up a meeting as soon as possible. Like I would say, they're going to the classrooms next week, well before school starts. Get in contact with them, get on the book so that your child can start out with the accommodations and modifications that they would need.
Really good point, because here we are at the edge of another school year.
I know, already.
Okay, Dr. Andrea, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, go to andreazeddies.com where you can learn more about Dr. Andrea's offerings. Also, check out this web story online, studio512tv.com, to see a list of available resources for families.